Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. How is everyone doing?
Good, and thrilled to be here.
Wonderful. Well, like we've just had a little pre-chat, I'm so excited to have all three of you on the line with me today. So we can just jump right into it if that's all right with everyone.
Yep.
Perfect. So the first question I'd love to discuss with you three is, in 2020, do we still need to market to women differently? And I know that's quite a broad one, but I think it's a good Kickstarter question. So, and Cindy, I know you had some strong views on this one before offline, so take it away.
Well, what I would say, Jasmine, is yes, we absolutely do need to market to women differently, as in not via a male-dominated marketing and advertising industry, because it is one of the enormous ironies of my industry that advertising's primary target is women. We are the primary purchasers and influencers of purchase of everything. And yet the advertising industry itself is male dominated, also true by the way of the marketing industry on the client side, male dominated. And so we as women are constantly being sold to through the male gaze. And what absolutely has to happen in 2020, and what I'm gratified to say is happening already, and I know we're going to come on and hear about Tanja's brilliant work in this area, but what has to happen is that we as women need to be marketed to through the female lens.
100%.
Because when we do, oh my God, as I like to say, there is a huge amount of money to be made out of taking women seriously. and whole new market opportunities open up, and honestly, whole new opportunities for brand and business success open up. And that's what we have to get the entire marketing and advertising industry to understand.
Completely agree with that. And I know, Cindy, you just pointed to Tanja's work. I think you'd probably in agreement with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the one hand, it's really important that women kind of tell the story to women, but it's also about that we show all kinds of experiences. So in our category for feminine care, what we have seen that even though women have their first period when they are 12, and this goes all the way to menopause when they are 50, so they are in the category, or we are in the category, for 40 years, they're being advertised only from the age of 18 to 30. So as soon as you turn 30, you're ignored by a whole category despite the need of products. Product innovation is also focused on those younger women, which means that once you have a baby, very often your period is heavier, but no one is offering you products. So we've seen women building their own sanitary pad solutions because nothing is in place. So I think it's really important to market, advertise, and innovate to all women to ensure that all experiences are covered and represented, and to keep them in mind.
Yeah, and I think, Farah, that must touch for you guys as well at Hanx, especially because condoms used by men, but that's something that women and men could purchase together. It's something that women
not used by men often enough.
Very true. Very true. Very true. I'm keeping that one in, Cindy. So what do you think about that, Farah?
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo the sentiments and comments made and agree that, you know, we still do need to market to women. There hasn't been enough done. And like Cindy said, you know, a lot of marketing is done through the male lens. And yes, a condom goes on a penis, but it goes in a vagina 100%. And it takes two to tango. And I think, you know, that is exactly why Sarah and myself set up Hanx, because we were sick and tired of seeing products that are promoting a man's conquest, garishly packaged, all with a man in mind, including things like ingredients, like putting anesthetics and condoms to make a man last longer. Super irritating for women down there. And when you look at even the smaller pieces like ingredients, it just makes you realise just how much to date has been done with a man's view in mind. And considering, you know, over 40% of purchases of condoms are actually made by women, it's astounding that no one has done that to date. So I mean, for us, that was the reason why we launched Hanx, and certainly we could see there was a need for people looking for not only a product that was all encompassing or neutral, but they just wanted a sustainable, considered sexual wellness alternative, not necessarily something that was penis-centric narrative.
And actually, I want to pick up on what Farah just said, because I'm very open about the fact that I date younger men. I date them casually and recreationally. And so I am a utterly committed condom user. Obviously in my case, I'm 60, not for pregnancy prevention, but for STD prevention. And so I make sure that I'm always stocked up with condoms. Although I will admit, because obviously, make condom hot, love not porn is something we're very focused on at Make Love Not Porn. Our real world sex videos are all about demonstrating that condoms can be an integral part of hot, arousing, great real world sex. And so, I never reveal the fact that I'm fully stocked up with condoms in the first instance, because I'm very interested to see what the man says. And I've heard them all until the excuses for not using, but my point is that, I therefore will head, here in the US to the local Dwayne Reed to pick up condoms, and I will stand in front of that condom fixture. And honestly, I have no idea, how to decide what to buy, because and quite frankly, a terrible retail experience for women is also a terrible retail experience for men.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the condom market has not even begun to tap into the huge opportunity that is selling condoms to women. Something also that I just want to say, Jasmine, in answer to your question about marketing to women. And this is something where, again, because so many industries and companies are male dominated, we have not yet seen the full power of. When women market intimate products and brands to women, we take all the shame and embarrassment and stigma out of it, because we are talking to ourselves and we all know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It is, honestly, the ridiculousness is, it is only because, at the top of every company of industry is a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys, my own industry, advertising included, they squirm at anything to do with, vaginas, with female sexuality, sexual health and wellness. And that is what has been holding back all of these markets. Because when we talk to each other, and when we do, again, this is what we're focused on at Make Love Not Porn, we socialize everything to do with sex and sexuality, we normalize it. Oh my God, the floodgates open. And again, because I really want to belabor this point, the business opportunity to make a ton of money just reveals itself immediately. And that is the huge opportunity at the moment so many brands are missing out on.
Yeah, and I think to add to that as well, you still do see big corporates holding us back within this space. For example, the likes of Facebook banning certain ads if you are, adult industry. And I think, we're not chastising men here. Like, men still form a big part of it, because sadly they represent a big portion of the advertising industry. But how can we bring them along this journey and have them as allies, and get them to understand that actually, a woman's view is important, and it is just as important to address that imbalance where women haven't been marketed to.
I think that's a very fair point, Farah, that we've also experienced by advertising tampons and sanitary towels and pads. Often our products and our campaigns that talk about vaginas and vulvas or show blood are censored. So by social media companies, by TV stations, because we are accused of showing inappropriate content, while we just provide everyday necessities for women to deal with their periods. And that shouldn't be the case. So I think this is also something that really needs to change in 2020.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, when we launched Hanx, not only did we want products that were sort of considered to women and beyond, but we wanted a brand that was real and relatable, and honest and on our terms, and that is what is missing. And we can't be honest and relatable and real to our market if some of the biggest agencies around the world are stopping us from advertising a product that is completely relevant. And I think the same applies with, as you've mentioned, with pads, sanitary wear. You know, why is it okay to be posting Viagra ads, but yet somehow half the population can't squirm at a bit of blood? Like, it baffles me.
Insane.
Here's the reason, and actually, and by the way, I have exactly the same issue. I can't advertise make love not porn on Facebook, Instagram, etc. The reason we're all experiencing this is very fundamental. It's because the young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate our lives today are not the primary targets, online and offline, of harassment, abuse, racism, sexual assault, violence, rape, revenge porn. Therefore, they did not, and they do not proactively design those platforms for the prevention of any of those things. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, the disabled, we design safe spaces and safe experiences. And the reason that this is relevant to what we're talking about today is because they built these platforms never thinking about, you know, what might happen with bad actors, you know, not designing out the kind of behavior that threatens the rest of us all the time. And so their only recourse when bad things happen on their platforms is the close the stable door after the horse has bolted approach, which is legislation, regulation, reporting, and oh my God, we can't do anything about it because it's now too big. And so what that means is that there is a knee-jerk approach to what we're all talking about, which is, you know, loosely no adult content, and it's blanket. And it's blanket across things that we could all benefit from seeing a great deal more of, including, obviously, all of our ads, the female lens on female sexual health and wellness. But, you know, even to something as natural as breastfeeding your baby. If you post a photo of you breastfeeding your baby on Facebook, your account gets shut down. And so we are actually going backwards as a society when the digital platforms we all live our lives on today are operating, you know, blanket terms of service that allow them to block open, healthy female lens messaging, that the world would be a lot better off having be out there in the open and helping women. And this is absolutely a battle we all have to fight to change.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really disappointing to hear that that still exists. And I think, you know, half the population are women, and I think we're not going to be able to move the needle so quickly on increasing the number of women in those roles that can help shift the advertising point. But what we can do is educate men in our lives to become allies, whether that's fathers, you know, sons, brothers, people who have sisters or are around women. And it's when more and more of those men are educated, we hope they will come together and actually make a stand and be supportive and understanding of what goes on in real life for women.
I think this is where big corporation and brands come in. So we are not the global market leader in feminine care, but still with our products, we reach 250 million globally on an ongoing basis, and with our advertising even more. So I think this is where we can come in and drive change by showing or representing the unseen and the unspoken and the unheard truth about women's bodies by representing all women, and also by showing it through the female lens. So with our brands or with our agencies, we have actually pledged a bit that we are working with female directors, we're working with female graphic designers, we're working with female voiceover artists, because also all of them are underrepresented. And I think for a feminine care brand like ours, it's not only a good fit for the brand, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's such a brilliant point, actually. Like, it starts from the home, it starts within. What else, you know, beyond the top dogs, what else can we be thinking about that involves women, all the way from the people we hire to input? And, you know, certainly, so we've raised investment before, And we've had a number of finance houses reach out about future funding and get involved. And the first thing I ask is, how many women are on your board?
Love that.
And, yes. And it's really uncomfortable for them because they squirm, but I've already checked and they've only got 1 out of a possible 20 bald and white men. No offense. And some of them have squirmed, some of them said, yeah, totally agree, we don't have enough women, we're actively doing something about it. But what are you doing about it? Because it's one thing talking about it and it's another thing actually putting action together. What is action? Whether it's investing in the career development of women in your workforce from a young age, or it's actively recruiting women on your boards that at top level there is direction. And I think Tanja, you make a really good point. Like, we can all do our bit. It's not just about at the top, it's about everyone that's around us.
Yeah, I completely hear you ladies on that, and absolutely agree. I think working from the bottom up always helps, but anyone who's in places like Tanja and Cindy in the bigger companies, top down also is just important. So just dovetailing from that conversation then, I think we've seen in a lot of recent trends in marketing to women, in a lot of campaigns we see high emotional engagement, we see the concept of female empowerment coming about a lot, and I personally feel that female empowerment is really tied closely to our own self-esteem. It's a really personal thing, and we've seen those in campaigns like Fearless Girl, This Girl Can, Billy's Project Body Hair, Tanja in Your Womb Stories, all of those. So I was just wondering, is that theme like of self-esteem and female empowerment particularly important in the work you do? And then what role does that play now in marketing to women in 2020?
Sorry, you go first.
If you want to go.
No, I was just saying, I mean, traditionally what we've seen is sort of self-esteem acts as a bit of a vehicle for mainly beauty brands to capitalize on. That's what we've seen traditionally, when actually, who cares if you have body hair? You don't have to have a soap that makes your vagina smell lovely. Like, all of this stuff is playing on our self-esteem, when actually, what we're trying to do, and I hope I can see other brands doing, is actually focus on what makes you real and what makes you feel comfortable, and everyone's choices are different. So we don't play as much on the self-esteem, but more of a, let's talk about the real and relatable topics that no one is talking about, and make you feel comfortable in your body, regardless of who, what, all those aspects. So that's my take on self-esteem.
I think it's quite similar, because what we've seen is that usually when girls reach puberty, this is when self-esteem goes down. And then for feminine care advertising, what you usually have seen over many years is that a product is offered so you can take care of your period and you can feel confident. But what all those campaigns and the creators behind them completely ignored is that women are being shamed because they're on their period, that women need to hide their period, that women can't talk about their period. In some cultures, they're even expelled from everyday family life, so they need to go to menstruation huts. And still, the offer is, here, have a product, feel confident about it. So I think this is where we come in with Libresse and Bodyform to say, all right, one thing is to offer you a solution, a product solution, but the other one is also to take care to tear down all those stigmas and stereotypes and taboos. I think it was a role or a responsibility that we as a brand need to do, because none of us women are living isolated in the world, right?
No.
We share it with our families, with our friends, with our partners, men, women, and society, religion, and culture have such an important influence. And in certain cultures and religions, period blood is considered dirty. So this is not something that a tampon or a towel can solve. This is only something that education and talking about it and showing the truth can solve. And I think this is why it's a crucial part in how we communicate.
And I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's also so Make Love Not Porn has a very particular approach to enhancing women's self-esteem, and we hear from women every day that how effective we are doing this, because what we do at Make Love Not Porn is we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size. You can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love till you're blue in the face. Nothing makes you feel great about your own body like watching people who are nobody's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having a bloody amazing time in bed. Our mantra at Make Love Not Porn is everybody is beautiful when they're having real world sex, and they really are. And the reason that's important is because as women, we are told all the time that we have to live up to what is a male lens ideal. And Make Love Not Porn is where, this is especially apposite with condoms, Farah, the rubber really hits the road in terms of seeing what actually people are turned on by in the real world. And, I made this point, do you guys remember last summer when Love Island announced its new season, and they were called out for the lack of diversity in the cast, both lack of ethnic diversity and lack of body diversity. And the producer very rationally said, oh, but we have to cast people that people are attracted to. And the entire internet came down on his head, including me. And I tweeted at him, and in fact, the Daily Mail published my tweet in a piece about all of this. But I tweeted at him, walk through any park in any big city in the summer and look at the couples sitting on the grass, holding hands, kissing each other, and you will see what people really are attracted to in the real world. Real world attraction is about real world people. And very importantly, that is men demonstrating what they are really attracted to in the real world. And so, we are absolutely showcasing that. And, women write to us and thank us for making them feel so much better about themselves and their bodies versus the inadequacy they feel when they look at the women in porn, for example. And what's also, I think, interesting too is, so we are the world's first and only social sex video sharing platform. And our Make Love Not Porn stars, our contributors, tell us that socially sharing their real world sex is as transformative for them and their relationships as socially sharing everything else has been for the world at large. And because we're the only platform that enables you to do this, this is not widely known, but we have a number of solo Make Love Not Porn stars, men and women, who have filmed themselves masturbating and shared, often for the first time ever. And many of our Make Love Not Porn stars have never filmed themselves doing anything sexual before. They're doing it for us. They believe in our social mission. And they've filmed themselves this very intimate act and published it to Make Love Not Porn for complete strangers to watch. They tell us that doing that made them love themselves more. It actually enhanced their sexual sense of self, their sexual self-esteem. Because when you're given the opportunity to focus on that, and it is something, and again, we've built a very safe community, as I said earlier, and it's a safe space to actually reveal your sexual side and enjoy it, and that is transformative. And again, in the work we're all doing, that is so crucial, being at one with yourself as a sexual being and all that entails. Half the problem is the shame, guilt, and embarrassment society has imbued everything to do with female sexuality, sexual health, and well-being.
And I think that's why I love Make Love Not Porn so much, because what we've seen is what the porn industry, or the negative effects the porn industry had on girls and women, which are that there is the belief there is only one perfect vulva or vagina, and this which is not the case. So there are studies done by doctors who've measured women's intimate areas, and the outcome is it's so diverse that there is not even a range of measurements for labias and so on. But because it's so much propagated, what happened is that women feel embarrassed if they think their vulva looks different than what is propagated. So and I think that has really dramatic consequences on their intimate health and life. So what we know is that 1 out of 3 women are skipping the smear test out of embarrassment. So you can't spot cancer, and then you can't treat it. We see that labiaplasty is the fastest growing cosmetic surgery in the world, which is insane. We also have talked to gynecologists and nurses, and their young girls are coming in and want to have their vulva cut off because they think they are not conforming to a norm. So I think all of that shows why it's so important to represent the truth, real women, real men, real bodies, and real experiences.
Yeah. I think that's appalling that especially younger females have that self-doubt in their body image and go and speak to GPs and miss their smear tests. I'm having my second one next week, little plug. But how else do you think brands then can bring about that genuineness, that realness, that rawness of life, and marketers and advertisers into the real world? I know Tanja with Blood Normal, things like that, and Cindy, real porn stars, real people. How else do you think we can do that then?
I think Tanja made a great point about culture, tradition starting from a young age as well. And I think education is so important, and that needs to be drilled down quite early on. Not, whether that's through sex education, making it a bit more holistic about relationships, etc. Like you said, I've got a 14-year-old niece, and I can see it in her. You start to build these expectations, even something as simple as Love Island, which I don't believe 14-year-olds should be watching, but they do. And they all compare on the playground, and I'm there telling my niece, you don't have to look like this, this isn't real. I think the education point needs to come at a much younger age, about what is normal, and that there is no normal, right? Everybody is different, and that's okay, and that's acceptable. And I think, putting the advertising and the challenges we've had to that aside, if there are any channels and platforms where we can be more open and relatable, we should be, whether we're a big brand, small brands, whatever. Because we're also not giving our consumers enough credit. Yes, fair enough, we're marketing with a female angle, etc., but they want transparency. They want to know, what do we care about? It's not just about making money. It's about being there for our consumers, listening to what they want.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that forms part of it. I think education is key. And just going to your point about culture, the problem you've got, I can only speak for UK, and my co-founder's a gynecology doctor who has worked in sexual health, and she's taught sex education in schools. And particularly in London, there was an all-girls school, which majority came from Muslim, Pakistani or Bangladeshi backgrounds. And the majority did not turn up. Their parents had excused them from it. So there are cultural expectations that, teen kids shouldn't be taught about sex ed. But then you wonder, where are they getting that sex education from? Are their parents telling them? I mean, I come from a Muslim Bangladeshi background. I went to the sex education classes, but I never had a conversation with my parents. And it's those cultural, religious, traditional norms that need to be broken down. And I think it's a complex case, but I think if we can make the education as holistic as possible, as inclusive as possible from a young age, I think that's a start.
Do you know, my enormous frustration, to your point, Farah, is that I've been trying for the past 6 years to raise funding for an expansion of Make Love Not Porn, which is what I call the Khan Academy of Sex Education. Because Khan Academy, the online education platform, tutors on every other topic under the sun except this one. Educational technology, EdTech, is exploding, but not in this area. And the idea for makelovenotporn.academy, by the way, I bought the URL in the hope I'll get to use it one day, is actually, it's an aggregator, because there are brilliant people all around the world, including in Muslim countries, creating culturally appropriate sex education. And so the idea is that in the same way that makelovenotporn.tv is a global social sex video sharing platform, this would be a global sex education hub where everybody can submit their own, work, books, papers, videos, comic strips, whatever it is. And then parents and kids will be able to access. It'd be segmented by age appropriate's, parents going, oh my God, my 6-year-old just lost my
I think there's a balance there, for sure.
Exactly. And I cannot get funded for Love Nor Money, would you believe? Because people just will not fund anything to do with sex. And by the way, this is why I have friends who are brilliant sex educators who cannot make a living doing it. They've had to take other jobs. And the other point I would make, just as far as the broad kind of social cultural dynamics go, is that everything we're talking about in this discussion about how women regard their bodies and their health and their sexuality themselves, all of that is positively impacted when in every sector of popular culture, you have women creating the media, approving the media, directing the media, to Tanja's point, producing it, running it. In my industry, advertising, stereotypes magically disappear the moment the people being stereotyped create, approve, produce, direct the ads. Yeah. When we have women at the top of, the TV industry, Hollywood, advertising, and when we have women scripting, writing, directing, producing, creating the ads through the female lens, we reflect ourselves the way we really are. And all of those ridiculous aspirational body types, pressure to be thin, pressure to be beautiful, goes away completely. It's actually a very simple solution. Get to a gender equal industry in every area of popular culture, you solve all of this immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, simple way of doing it, but it's going to take decades.
No, it's not, Farah, because we're going to make damn sure it's not going to take decades. We're going to have decades to wait.
I bloody hope so, and I'm sure it's going to be different in the UK and the US. But if I took that statement to Bangladesh, I can assure you it would take longer than 5-10. Sadly, I'm just being real about it. That these cultural barriers have a real impact on women in society. But yeah, I'm all for the change, and I will fight it as much as I can.
But the interesting thing is, and I want Tanja to speak to this, because this is exactly what the work she's doing at Essity can impact. Do you know, because honestly, Farah, none of us have decades to wait. Okay, I want to see this change in my lifetime. And so it's absolutely about finding the cultural inflection points.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean the points of maximum leverage where what we do can have a disproportionate effect. And by the way, on the Make Love Not Porn front, okay, so we struggle for investment. My biggest obstacle finding investors is the social dynamic I call fear of what other people will think.
Yeah.
But we are a global platform, and so the one benefit of being a controversial venture is that people write about us all around the world without us doing any media PR outreach. Whenever anybody writes about us in any country in the world, that country rockets to be number 2 in traffic after the US, which is normally our biggest market. Somebody wrote about us in Pakistan. This is a few years ago. Pakistan was suddenly number 2 in traffic. A friend of mine actually was traveling around the world, and and she spent some time in Pakistan, and she went to a club with she was on a vacation from Oxford, so it was a bunch of sort of early 20-somethings, and she wrote to me and she said, oh my God, I brought up Make Love Not Porn, and everyone in the group said, oh yeah, we know about Make Love Not Porn. Yeah. And I was going, what, in Pakistan? And so find the inflection points, because people are desperate for everything we're talking about. People are dying to talk about sex. They're desperate for information about sex. They are desperate for information about their own bodies when they're women, and they're desperate to feel better about all of this. And Tanja, you know, I think the work you're doing with Essity has the ability to make a profound cultural impact in all of these markets around the world in a way that can absolutely accelerate different attitudes in the right kind of way.
Yeah, I really hope so. And trust me, I'm doing everything I can on my end, just like you ladies are. But I think the inflection point is one thing, but there's the fear, which is another thing. So I don't doubt that people want to know. Everyone wants to know. Everyone needs to know, but it's that taboo and the case of getting caught by men in these certain countries that instill in a fear that I think is going to take longer to tackle. And that's certainly in the less developed areas.
I think what we've seen with Blood Normal and with Viva la Vulva and with Womb Stories, that those campaigns create so much debate and spark so many conversations. So for Womb Stories, where we address first period, we address menopause, we address a lesbian couple trying to have a baby, going through IVF, losing a baby, finally giving birth. We talk about floodgates when you are having your period, and what we saw is that both men and women are reacting very emotionally to the campaign. We also show a woman who is just enjoying having sex and she does not want to have kids. And when I read the comments all across the world, you know, from Russia, that is much more conservative, to Sweden, that is much more open, to China, to Argentina, is that there is always people who feel very much understood. So one guy was commenting and saying, you know, watching your film Womb Stories really gave me hope, because I'm going with my partner through fertility treatment and we lost babies, but in the film we see that they finally managed to get one, so it gives me hope. And we had another woman saying, I am 50 and I'm not having kids, and I love that this is finally addressed, that this is okay, because I've always been judged for not having children. And then there is also, for our campaigns, because it's a taboo, there are also always haters. But what you can see is that in the social media space, there seems to be a kind of self-regulation. So if there is a hater on, there are so many others who say, well, that's not the case, and what are you saying? And I think this is really powerful. The one-on-one conversations that are being sparked and debated. And I think by working with women, what you have mentioned, Cindy, is in Womb Stories, we always wanted to tell the fertility treatment journey. But when we got Nisha Ganatra, an Emmy Award-winning director, on board, we didn't know that she herself was going through that with her partner. So I think she then added so much to her own experience. So when I remember the first time I saw the ad, it just gave me goosebumps, because it was so, it just felt so true and so real.
Yeah. And can I just say, like, congratulate, that piece is incredible. When I first saw it, it just encompasses just a smidgen of all the different aspects we face as women at some point in our lives. And I just thought it was so well put together and so applicable to women of various ages, you know, from teenagers to mid to menopause. I just think it's a great, and we need more pieces like that initially appear thought-provoking when actually that is the norm, and we need to show more of that. And that's the sort of stuff that, like you said, it applies regardless of culture and tradition. It's pushing on more of that to make it acceptable.
Yeah,
exactly. And I want to just you know, to pick up again on your point, Farah, because you know, I'm half Chinese. I grew up in Brunei. I grew up in an Orthodox Muslim country in Asia. I'm fully aware of all of the cultural barriers you're talking about.
Yeah.
At the same time, women write to me from the Middle East, and thankfully, what Make Love Not Porn is doing, they say, all the men here watch porn out the wazoo. They think that's what sex is. This woman wrote to me and said, my girlfriends are terrified of sex in their marriages because that is what they're expected to do, because it's the only education anybody's had. People write to us from India, and I'm looking for local investors and partners in all of those countries because, underneath all of those cultural barriers, there is a desperation on the part of women to absolutely be spoken to in the way that we all are, and be able to absorb that. And I'm asked all the time in media interviews, so Cindy, why do you feel we're so repressed about sex? And I'm asked that so often, I now have my answer down pat. 3 reasons. Number one, centuries of, repression, religion, socio-cultural dynamics in every single country in the world. So I make the point, this is a global issue. Number 2, the patriarchy, because historically, every single institution, including government and religion, has been male-dominated. We as women have never been allowed to bring our lens to bear on human sexuality, and the world is a poorer place for it. And reason number 3 is, and the way I articulate it is, there are not enough people like me. And what I mean by that, and I include, not enough people like all 3 of us, because the world makes it so goddamn difficult to disrupt social narratives around sex. I know many people, fellow sex tech entrepreneurs, sex educators, who've tried and given up because it's so disheartening and so difficult. The world needs many more people like us who will not give up no matter what, because we absolutely can change this. And again, because I've traveled around the world, I've met a group of amazing different sex educators in India, again, tackling this. In a country with tremendous socio-cultural barriers to being and dealing with all sorts of issues and attacks because of it. There are enough of us absolutely determined to keep going no matter what, that we can and we will change this. And we have to.
Agreed.
Never give up.
Exactly.
Yeah, here to that. And I think, Farah, just going back to the point that Tanja and Cindy have touched on, do you then think, because these taboos and stereotypes are so big, that women still just need to be brave and, of course, bear in mind cultural appropriation, but slightly push it to the side, because if we don't, then those barriers will never be broken down?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that, but I also think it's going back to the initial point about men being allies, and I think, Cindy, you touched upon it, even looking for local investors who are generally men or more male entrepreneurs in these less developed countries, and it's about having these guys as allies that enables it and makes it more supportive. I think women can speak up about it, but I've also heard horror stories of women who have spoken about it and been raped, beaten up, murdered, and that is the truth. And you see one story of that in a less able country, and it shocks fear to all the other women, and it just sets us back again. I think we have made strides. I think there is more movement, and I think we can still be doing a lot more, but we need men as allies. We need them to help enable that, especially in countries like India and Bangladesh.
And the key thing about those allies is they are never the obvious ones.
Yes.
So the thing I've learned in 11 years of working Make Love Not Porn is that sex is the one area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people you think would totally get it don't. The people you thought were total prudes do. A man's willingness and a woman's to be an ally is absolutely a function of their own sexual journey and experience. It is absolutely driven by their own personal experiences. And when you find the men who really get it, they really get it. And I am talking to, it's very frustrating because I know my investors are out there. They're really hard to find by the usual means. Nobody's putting their hand up going, bring me sex tech. But, so I put what I'm doing out there all the time. And I have to rely on those synaptic connections being made that will draw them to me. But I am in dialogue with several male allies around the world who do really get it and really want to help us, scale globally and be impactful and effective globally, including in some very specific markets like China, which also has a huge amount of cultural issues, and also, by the way, governmental authoritarian issues as well.
Yes.
And so if you can find the right allies, honestly, you can make the impossible happen, I believe.
I think that's so true. And I think when our global president said to me, Tanja, revolution doesn't start from the top. So do whatever you think is right for the brand. I think he had no idea what he unleashed or ignited.
Excellent.
So that's when we started. And initially we were a really small team. It was just 2 of us internally in our amazing advertising agency, AMV, in London with a small team. And we had a WhatsApp group that was called Blood, because it was so bloody difficult to get the work out there.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, we have, and no one wanted to air it. So at one point we got it produced, which was Redfit, our first campaign, and that didn't even show period blood. It just showed women doing sports when they were on the period. We finally got it produced, and then not a single marketeer in our organization was willing to air it. Luckily it went viral, and then I think it changed everything. But by now, I think there is a group of probably 200 marketeers in our company that are absolutely aligned behind our purpose and behind our values. But that was not always the case, and I think that WhatsApp group really helped to to go through this, because there is always backlash. And breaking taboos was easy, it wouldn't be taboos that we were breaking.
Yeah,
Exactly.
preach. Yeah.
Having allies is just important. Men, women, old, young, whatever race, whatever color, no matter where they are from.
Yeah, and I think as women, we should all be very proud of ourselves for being part of this movement that will make change, and we will make strides in this, and we will push the boundaries, no matter what they are, to help fight the cause. I mean, I remember so well when I told my family that I was leaving banking to start condoms, and honestly, you should have been there. Please.
Fly on the wall, yeah.
I have to tell you, people ask me, so Cindy, what do your parents think of what you do? and my response is, we don't talk about it, but they know I'm doing a good thing, and also, by the way, I go, my mother's Chinese. The day I scale Make Love Not Porn to be the Facebook of social sex, and I'm making a huge amount of money, she'll be fine with it.
That's the Asian parent.
Yeah. Love that. Well, then, to bring our conversation to a close, our final kind of question to talk about then is, how do you think brands can do better and do a better job, really, when it comes to marketing to women?
I think I touched on this point before about, we need to give our consumers more credit than we think. There's no point in putting a really fancy, beautiful bottle or package of something and assuming that that's it. It's good because we say it's good and it looks beautiful. They actually, want honesty and transparency from brands. And I think we can always be doing a better job to market to an underrepresented market. But I think we're making strides, but I still think we have to be authentic.
Yeah.
And listen to your consumer. Regardless of their gender, there's no point in building a product because it's aesthetically pleasing, but not what women want.
I think we have actually defined 5 brand values that we live by in order to, do a better job in marketing. One is our value about being inclusive and not excluding, because not everyone who has a period is identifying as a woman, and not every woman is having a period. So that's just one example. So we never imply or assume there is only one way of being a woman, or there is only one experience. That's one. The second one is our value about caring, not sacrificing. So when we innovate, we do not only innovate to meet women's well-being needs, but we also try to keep the planet in mind.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge responsibility that we have to do it better for us, but also for the planet and for society. The third one we live by is about open talk, not silence. So because there are so many taboos and stereotypes about vaginas and periods and vulvas, we are the ones who are spearheading and triggering conversations everywhere we can, be it with our packaging and having very open language, or showing period drops as absorbency measures in red, not blue, or with school programs or with our advertising. Whenever we can, we break taboos and we fight stereotypes, and we lead the way. The fourth one is we believe that everything we do is for her, not for others. So this is where we really want to celebrate women's freedom to care for their intimate area the way she chooses to, but also that she can have the intimate life that she wants. So we never tell what she should or shouldn't do, or how she should or shouldn't look or behave. And the last one we call is natural, not dirty. And I think that also relates back again to a lot of taboos. So by the way we talk and represent, we always promote that women have a positive relationship with their intimate area. We never imply that blood is dirty, or discharge, or any intimate fluid that is coming out from your body, and blood for sure isn't blue. So those are the 5 values we live by, and where we hope we can do a better job.
I think there's a very simple way for brands to market better to women, which is put women in charge of marketing to women, and put women in charge at every single point along the supply and distribution chain, as Tanja highlighted earlier. Creating the ads, approving the ads, directing the ads, producing the ads, casting the ads, etc., etc. And that is enormously to brands' benefit, because when you do that, and when you create, in the same way that Tanja has, advertising and communications that resonate so fundamentally, so deeply, so empathetically with women, the key thing about women is not only do we buy, we share. Social media is simply a whole new methodology for us to do what we have been doing since the dawn of time, which is sharing the shit out of everything in a way that men don't. because we're the gossipers. We're the chatterers, the sharers, the advocates, the ambassadors. So much so, I actually say to brands that think they're targeting men, talk to women, because women will influence men more than men will influence other men. And so when you market to women, through women, by women, for women in a way that resonates with women, your message, your content, your brand will shoot out there in a way that obviously drives far better business. And again, Tanja and Viva la Vulva and Womb Stories have absolutely proven how much that can be done. And so, it's very simple. Just put women in charge of marketing to women.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. Okay, well, I think that last point brings everything to a close really, really nicely. So I'd like to thank you all so much. It's been an incredible conversation. You're all trailblazers. So happy to have you all join me. Super grateful, and thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. What a great conversation.